Welcome back to Empathic Chronicles. I'm your host, Tiffany Elise, and this is, as a reminder, your go-to podcast for embracing empathy, self-love, and just personal growth. Today, we're actually diving into a topic that is deeply personal for me, neurodiversity. I am a neurodivergent, and I know that many are, and I want this episode to be a form of inspiration to people that are also neurodivergent, people who possibly may feel like they are and just haven't been diagnosed yet, or just the community in general for support. I think that that's important. Let's start off with what is neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is a concept that embraces the diversity of our brains and our minds. Basically, the idea that we are all wired differently, it's actually a good thing. And for those of you who are neurodivergent, whether we live with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, learning disabilities, or mental illness, this conversation is about accepting who we are, finding our strengths, and celebrating our unique minds. So grab your cafecito, your little coffee, and have a seat, get comfy, get cuddlish, and let's get started. So, my personal journey with neurodiversity. Let me start by sharing a little bit of my own journey and with neurodiversity. As someone who lives with mental illness and has learning disabilities, I have faced a lot of struggles in my life. For me, the difference is that I wasn't actually diagnosed until I was an adult. So a lot of the things that I struggled with as a kid, I was always just told, oh, get over it, you're being dramatic, or, whatever. So then as an adult, when I realized, no, I have conditions, and, there's a reason why, it made all the sense in the world. And it wasn't just to have something to say I have it. It just, everything added up, like the T's crossed, the I's dotted. So example, focus, organization, and learning in traditional ways have never been easy for me. I have always struggled with being in a classroom setting and being able to digest the information at the same pace as the next person. But here's the thing, I'm not less than because of it. I'm different, and different is powerful. Growing up, I often felt like I didn't fit the mold. And I'll be quite honest, I struggled in school. My mind worked differently, and sometimes it felt like I was battling myself just to keep up. For a long time, I thought I had to hide those differences because I was never taken to a doctor to get evaluated or anything like that. So for me, I just thought that the best way was to hide those differences and to push through like everyone else, like if I didn't have those challenges. But that only led to burnout and frustration. And I remember that because, like I've said before in previous episodes, I kind of did life backwards. I grew up, I moved out of my mom's house, I married my husband, and we created the life that we have today. I didn't go to see a doctor to find out about my, symptoms that I was having. And I didn't go through testing and a full evaluation by multiple providers until I was an adult. And I noticed it because I was in college and I was trying to get my degree. And I realized that I legit had trouble focusing. I had almost issues comprehending. I could read a chapter or two chapters literally 3 or 4 times in order for me to actually get the point. And sometimes it wouldn't even make sense. So, it took me time, and to reframe the narrative, I've learned to reframe how I see my neurodivergent brain. I, for so long, was like, oh my God, I must be stupid because like I can't get this right. Studying was always an issue for me. I remember I would use, everything that you could think of, Khan Academy, Quizlet. I would go and sit in different places like the bookstore, the coffee shop. I was like, maybe I need a different environment. Like I read books and I tried everything and still it would not make sense. And I'm like, make it make sense, please. So I started to realize that I wasn't failing, but I just had different ways of like approaching things, and I was getting the same results, but like sometimes it would either take me longer or I would have to take a few extra steps or maybe just a different route in totality to comprehend like a topic we were talking about in class or a project that I was working on with a group, or like when I was getting my master's degree, my final paper, just that was all part of me being wired for something different. And that's the way I see it. I'm just wired different. I'm not broken. And anyone with neurodivergence, I want you to know that we're not broken. We are wired for something different. We think outside the box and we are often like creative problem solvers. We see the world in ways that neurotypical people may not. And that's our strength. That's our superpower. And I heard a TED Talk where America Ferrara gave a talk, and she spoke so much about how your uniqueness is your superpower. It's not your weakness. It doesn't mean that you're less than. Our minds are unique, and that uniqueness can honestly bring fresh ideas, new perspectives, and extraordinary abilities to this world. I know for me, it took me quite a few years to come to this realization, but neurodiversity isn't something to be fixed. And that's the distinction that I think I've always had to kind of get through. It's something to be embraced, it's something to be celebrated, and it's something to be understood. And it doesn't matter how old you are when you realize or when you learn that, you are neurodivergent and you do struggle with certain things. In the beginning, you're like, why am I so different? Why do I have to be on all this medication in order to do what the same person next to me does? And for so long, well, basically my entire youth, I wasn't diagnosed. So then as an adult, the minute that I was diagnosed and the minute that I was put on medication and the minute that I started therapy in conjunction with taking medication, so many things made sense. So many things started clicking. I did exceptionally better at work, at school. I could focus. I felt like I had my head on straight. And that took a long time to like accept that, because like I knew that there was something different. But again, growing up, it's like you're just being dramatic, get over it. Then you become an adult, you have your own kids, and you're like, oh shit, like no, like I think something is wrong, And it takes you a while to accept that. And I think that there's a power that comes with self-acceptance. One of the most important steps in my journey was learning to accept myself for who I am. Because for so long, I was, at least from when I was initially diagnosed to when I started like owning it, I was kind of ashamed. I was like kind of embarrassed. I was like, why do I have to take medication to do the same person and to do the same, to answer a question essentially that somebody else may be asking in the classroom? Why is it that other, students did so well on tests? I'm a horrible test taker. I always have been. But I, battled my own mind, as you can guess. I struggled with focus and productivity, and I often questioned my value. But there was a game changer. The moment that I feel like I started to embrace my neurodivergence and seeing it as a gift, things started to change. Things made sense. Things became normal for me. Things, it started to make sense. And I think for me, like, I want to inspire others out there who may feel like they don't fit in, like almost like a puzzle, like you're that missing piece that just doesn't fit, or like your brain is working against you. No, you are not less because you are different. You are unique, and your difference is your superpower, period. And I don't care who tells you what, listen to what I'm telling you, okay? You are not less than. Living with learning disabilities and mental illness isn't easy. And let's face it, I mean, we all have our rough days. But the important thing is to recognize that even on your rough days, you bring something to the table. And just because you're neurodivergent, just because you have a learning disability, just because you struggle with ADHD, just because you have mental illness does not mean that you cannot bring something to the table. So how do you do that, right? Well, you have to search deep and find your strengths. So for those listening who are neurodivergent, my message to you, I know I've been telling you, like, listen to me. I have another message, okay? Find your strengths, okay? You may struggle in areas where others thrive. Like for me, I was a horrible test taker, but when it came to writing a paper, I could freaking write you a book and like put this incredible story together. I hope to be able to publish my book one day because of all the stories that I've written. But I promise you, there are things that you can do that are absolutely amazing. Whether it's creative, whether it's innovative, whether it's empathy or just resilience, you have qualities that make you shine. Focus on those qualities. Focus on those things that bring out the best in you. It's within your self-acceptance, it's okay if the traditional path doesn't work for you. Like for me, I almost think that like doing life backwards kind of worked in my favor because I struggled a lot in school growing up. And then once I grew up and I wanted to go back to school, I wanted to get a degree, I wanted to get a higher paying job. But, I had 2 kids, but I literally forged my own path. And it's okay if that traditional path doesn't work for you, okay? We are allowed to create our own path. You don't have to follow anyone else's journey. You can forge your own path. And for me, I feel like that's how I was able to grow through what I went through and accept what I had and learn and acclimate and find new ways to do things based on my situation. And for so long, like I said, I struggled a lot with like shame and embarrassment and things of that nature because I was like, I know that I'm different. I know that like up in my head, it's in this brain, sometimes it can get real ugly in there and sometimes it can be a real struggle. But I think that when I finally realized that like, okay, yes, if for lack of better words, I feel fucked up in the head. I have mental illness. I struggle to fucking retain information. But then I look at like how successful I am. I have a successful career. I love what I do every day. I have this podcast. I'm able to multitask. I'm a very high functioning, anxious person. So for me, like, I think I've said this in a previous episode, there's no 50. It's just like 0 to 100. That's just the way I've always been. I don't know how to just do one thing at a time. Like, I've never been able to do that. I'm doing one thing and I'm already wanting to do something else. And I still accomplish what I was doing first, but it may take a different route or it may have a different outcome. same like goal, same results, but maybe just the path that I took to make that happen is different. So for the allies and the loved ones that are listening, I want to provide encouragement because I want to normalize the stigma of neurodiversity. I want to normalize the stigma of, oh, well, you have learning disabilities, you have mental illness, so then you're probably not as strong as the next person because like you have issues. No, fuck that. Like, it doesn't matter. Okay? It doesn't make you any different or less than the other person. It's crucial to be patient, understanding, and supportive throughout your journey of either learning that you're neurodivergent or just learning to live your life as a neurodivergent person. Because neurodivergent people often need different strategies. Sometimes, for example, in school, like I know I always needed accommodations as an adult for like testing and stuff like that because like I needed additional time. That's okay. Okay. And that support that you get can make a huge difference. Okay. So if there's anything you can do is encourage the neurodivergent people in your life to embrace their uniqueness and provide the space that they need to thrive because everybody's space looks different. And I'm so sick and tired of like social media and like society always trying to paint this picture of what it should be like or what it should look like or how you should, take a picture or how you should, I don't know, just, you know what I mean? I think that embracing your uniqueness and what's special to you is not only your superpower, but something that could essentially change the world. Okay. My book, and my path is all about breaking the cycle and being the difference. And I'm talking generational curses. I'm talking neurodivergence and, what people either immediately like just assume that it is this way when it's not. I know that I'm very unique. I know that I bring a lot to the table. I may be neurodivergent. I may be a little late to the party, but shit, when I show up, I show up and I give my all. Just because I'm neurodivergent does not make me less than the next person who doesn't have any learning disabilities or any mental illnesses or is not on the spectrum, or doesn't have anything. No, we are all, because at the end of the day, we're better together, right? And this world, in order for it to, in my opinion, function, opposites need to attract, and there needs to be that stigma normalized. Okay. So I feel that, for me as an adult now, I still see a therapist. I still have, a psychiatrist that I see. I still have, doctors that I see to support my neurodivergence, because at the end of the day, like I'm still, as an adult, I'm still growing, right? And so I struggle, and there's times where I struggle more than other times. And so how do I balance that? And I can't thank my care team enough, but it is definitely the support that I get from being a part of recovery groups, because I suffer from a lot of PTSD, and that often hinders my mental illness, which ultimately then plays and takes a toll on my neurodivergence, because I'm not focusing, because I'm all up in my head, because things are fucked up there. You get it. Okay. So what I'm saying is, no matter what your path is, no matter how neurodivergent you are, no matter what you struggle with, your uniqueness is your superpower. And so embrace your uniqueness, embrace that shit, own that shit, walk that freaking catwalk. Okay. You've got this. All right. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this thought. I've said it plenty of times, but I want to repeat it for the world to hear. Being neurodivergent doesn't make you any less. You're not broken. You're not less capable. You are unique AF, and that uniqueness is something to be embraced and celebrated. It took me so long to learn that, but the minute that I finally started to catch on and started giving a shit less, I was like, oh my God, like, no, I'm still making shit happen. This is just my tale. This is my story. And so I definitely want to continue this conversation, whether it's on Instagram or whether, you want to leave comments after this episode, but let's continue this conversation and let's lead with empathy and kindness, both to ourselves and to other people, because at the end of the day, you don't know what the next person is going through. And maybe you and who you are and your uniqueness brightens up that person's day like you have no idea. Never underestimate the impact that you have on the world. Okay, utilize your strengths, utilize your powers, your superpowers, utilize your uniqueness, and make it so that you are making an impact. So let's continue talking about this. Let's lead with kindness, both to ourselves and to others. And I hope this episode has encouraged you to see neurodiversity not as a challenge to overcome, but as a beautiful difference that really makes you who you are. Okay? So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode. I told you I'm going to be trying out a different day to actually post to see what difference it makes, but I definitely want to leave you with this and this inspiration, okay? So thank you for tuning in to Empathic Chronicles. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to add to your library, share, subscribe, leave a review. Hey, leave a comment, okay? And most importantly, if there's anything that you've taken from today's episode, remember, you are more than enough, just the way that you are. Okay? So don't let anybody tell you any different. All right? I will talk to you soon. Stay bright, love and light, work it, twerk it, and make it happen, girl. Or guy, you got this. Bye.